Honorable Khubeka, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. And greetings once again to the House. Greeting honorable members. Greetings to the teams from the Hawks, the SIU, NPA, DPCI, IDAC. Chair, I think we've spoken about this, but I want to speak more about it. That any institution, Chair, that operates with more or less 50% of a staff complement is being set up to fail. It's being deliberately set up to fail. Now, I worry because I believe that the executives that run that institution, they've been there for quite some time. Now, if we've got a situation like that, that means that this is being done on purpose. And I don't want to be sitting here bashing the institution, but from the public's view or from our view, it looks very bad. If you've had people who've been working in the institution, who've been running the institution for years, and they know that there's 50% of the people who are supposed to be helping them function properly, and they're not functioning. It's a big problem, Chair, especially given all of the issues and the cloud that is hanging on these institutions. Chair, Advocate Batoy said that they cannot keep up with the competitive remuneration for specialized skills. We get that. Now, what has been done about that? What has she done about that? Has she come to Parliament to speak to that? Has she gone to Treasury to speak to that? Because then it means that they need to, have they not considered approaching Treasury to say, guys, we cannot keep up with the remuneration that the private sector is giving to people with these specialized skills. We need to up our ante. Chair, we know the NPA, it does not give confidence to the public in general now, after the lack of prosecution on their part. We have high-profile cases, Chair, and I'll just mention a few. We've got the state capture cases, a big issue. Still, nothing's happening there. We're told that there's 4 cases that emanate from state capture. 4. When R1 billion was spent by the Zondo Commission, we're sitting with 4 cases. We've got the Phalaphala Saga. Nothing's happening. We've got Majela Gogo's case. Nothing. Omotoso, nothing. Bushiri, nothing. Estina Dairy Farm, nothing. Gupta brothers extradition, nothing. Free State Asbestos scandal, nothing. Along with the botched Morwadi Cholota case, nothing. Cindy Somakaka case, nothing. That doesn't look good. It says we've got a problem, Chair. It says we have a huge problem, and I think before we leave this House, we need to understand where is that problem emanating from. Out of these entities that sit with us today, where is the problem coming from? Chair, there are concerns about the NPA's capacity to deal with complex corruption cases with the potential for political interference. Now, as they sit here, there's a view, a very big view that is unspoken of, especially in this committee, because we tend to tiptoe around certain issues, that they are viewed as people who are politically influenced to step on certain cases and not on others. The NPA has faced accusations of mishandling cases and delaying justice, especially in high-profile cases. That too is a problem. In cases of poor people or people who cannot afford these fancy lawyers, those ones get prosecuted. And that's just a view that we now have of the NPA, and it's not a good look. Chair, again, on the national lotteries cases, I just want to know, and here's a question. is the scope of the investigation going to be expanded given the issues that were ventilated in this House a couple of weeks ago, where there's a lot of other cases that we looked at when the NLC was here, the National Lotteries Commission? Or are those cases already covered in the slides that we got or that we received here today? On that 1 billion rand that was spent, Chair, on the State Capture Commission, are there any more cases coming from that front? And if there are no cases coming, Chair, should this 1 billion rand expenditure on the commission not be classified as fruitless and wasteful expenditure? That's a question for the team as well. And then, Chair, we have to ask ourselves that what is the core function of the NPA as it stands right now? Are they following people or certain individuals instead of following the evidence? Because you can't tell us that with the high number of high-profile cases that are not being taken to bed, that all of them seem to have a problem. Before the case is taken up and thrown into the media, is there not enough investigative capacity to determine that, okay, this one will be able to see through, so we take it on? No, this one we leave it because we can't take it on. Before you take people and you ruin people's lives, you put them in the media, they are paraded in front of everyone as these corrupt people, and then at the end of the day, there's nothing. Case in point, Matjela Koko. Matjela Koko was picked up at his house with his family and they were taken in by, I think it was the Hawks, if I'm not mistaken, and the whole country believed that those people are corrupt. And then the Middleburg Commercial Crimes Court has just thrown the thing out, years later. Now, a lot of people they don't even know about what I'm talking about now because it's not been plastered all over the media the way it was plastered when he was being taken into custody. Because now everyone believes that Matjela Koko is corrupt, but evidently he's not. So again, I ask, Chair, are they following evidence or are they following certain people? And then lastly, Chair, I wanted to ask, how secure is, now this is for the IDEC team. I heard that...
Members, please.
I heard that...
Honorable Khubeka, Honorable Khubeka is speaking, so it's not okay to speak while he is.
Chair, I wanted to ask, how secure is any investigation, now this is for IDEC, that includes outsourced investigation capabilities? Do these outsourced investigating people, do these people sign NDAs? Do they have any security clearance? Do they need any clearance? Because if you are saying, okay, we're a specialized unit specializing in this, yet when we need to investigate that specialized item, we outsource. So when you're in that process of outsourcing, are these people vetted? Are they given security clearance? Are they made to sign NDAs? What is the process there? And then, sorry, Chair, I see there's one more point that I missed. On the Transnet Neotel contracts, I think the unfortunate issue here, Chair, is with having these issues taking prolonged periods of time to put to bed. You find the issue of Liquid Telecoms. It was also on the slides, where Liquid Telecoms is still operating in other government entities. And I say this because yesterday, actually, I posed a question to the Minister of Transport about Liquid Telecoms, asking them that there's a contract that they're running concurrently with, it was Datacentrics. One of those companies has been, the contract has been terminated at Eskom, but they've been paid close to 100 million rand already, even after having been terminated. Now, if that company is Liquid Telecoms, the same Liquid Telecoms that's being investigated here, we need to realize and appreciate that these cases taking long to get dealt with is causing a huge problem, and the ripple effect is big. Thank you, Chair.
I'm going to first hand over to Advocate Johnson, the head of IDAC, to deal with those questions, and then I'll sweep up Thank you.
Honourable Chair, honourable members, and to colleagues from the SIU and the sister agency, the DPCI. Honourable Ndate Khubeka, you raised some issues that do pertain to IDAC, but then some of the general questions that have an investigative component to the DPCI also relate to ourselves, Chair, and I seek to perhaps be given an opportunity to deal with those. So, Honourable Khubeka, on the issue of IDAC only having 4 state capture cases in court, I thought I would clarify the SIU referred 10 matters to IDAC. Of those 10, 3 are in court, 7 under investigation. But if you take the state capture cases, IDAC currently has 37 state capture cases on the roll, plus 13 other corruption matters on the roll, bringing the total to 50 criminal matters on the court roll. I just thought I would clarify those. And I do take the point, Honourable Chair and members, that oftentimes matters seem to have failed. Unfortunately, we have had this discussion as well internally, is that there are certain things that we do not come out and say, as was the case in the New Lane matter. Part of our ethics and profession means we run process, and in the end, the process must speak for itself. And so you would not have found the NPA going out and making any negative comments, per se, about the presiding officer in the matter. You take the matter on appeal, it gets dealt with. So similarly, if you take the Gupta extradition, for example, and yes, we are criticized for having failed that extradition, and we didn't fail the extradition. When the UAE decided not to extradite the Guptas, Chair and honourable members, we wrote to them, we have to follow a process. 12 note verbals later, we still do not have any response from the UAE about why the extradition failed. Safe to say that they have asked us to resubmit. Now, how do you resubmit when you've submitted a full set of papers, properly checked, even by themselves? So it does put you in somewhat of a predicament. Do you now send these papers for it to be a so-called failed attempt again? We have now, however, taken a decision to submit new applications with additional matters. The country also cannot sit and wait while the NPA, unfortunately, has to follow a legal process. So having taken that into account, the public interest and the interest of justice, we will submit new applications, but not just for the matters that we had applied for, which was Estina and New Lane. We are going to apply for extraditions in relation to other state capture matters. And I just want to be clear about...
Sorry, may I ask, because I think, for context, has there been any other criminal prosecution, and this might be for Advocate Mzinyati and you as well, because it's not, this is a general question, where you've had to extradite, to have somebody extradited from the UAE? Is it generally difficult in the manner that it has been, or there is basically there's an exception here? That's what I'm trying to establish, if you know.
I can indicate, Chair, it's generally difficult, and not just for South Africa. So when we engage on such matters, and especially matters where we have foreign jurisdictions, we actually do engage with some of our international counterparts, and from the UK to the US and other jurisdictions, it has been a challenge. Getting extraditions from the UAE. So we've tried to do lessons learned, look at the best practices, and unfortunately, that is where we are. And then to indicate, for example, on the cocoa matter, I just have to be very clear. At no stage did the state parade Mr. Coco. Yes, there would have been pictures of Mr. Coco, but Mr. Coco appeared in a public court, and the media is allowed in court. And it has never been our modus, nor will it be. And if it was seen that way, it is unfortunate. But he was not singled out, Chair. So Mr. Coco, together with a host of other individuals, was arrested as part of a matter. We do not single out any individual. We have to follow the evidence. And what we put an accused, and not just him, what we do put an accused before court on are allegations. Their guilt and or not must still be determined by a court of law. And so we have to follow the evidence. We do not follow profile, and it becomes extremely important for the people of our republic to understand that we make allegations, they appear on a formal charge sheet, they appear in an open court, entitled to legal representation, and a court process is then run. We did allude to this, Chair, that we did have challenges in that matter, and there are legal processes with regards to the presiding officer that are being dealt with by the Magistrates Commission and the Legal Professions Council. And because they currently sub judice, I cannot allude to what is actually happening. In terms of potential for political interference, and they pick certain cases because they are influenced, I will say adamantly and vehemently, absolutely not. Not in the IDEC space. No one has tried to interfere. And I dare them to interfere because ours is an oath and an independence that's guarded by the Constitution, but by integrity of self and the institution. But what I'm alive to is one cannot say there would never be an attempt. If anyone has evidence, it should be brought to the fore, because it is important that we are seen to be able to do our work without fear, favor, or prejudice, Chair. I wanted to deal with this aspect that was raised with the DPCI, Honorable Khubeka, but because it might also relate to our space, on how do they secure investigations where services are outsourced. So in the main, I think together with the DPCI, one of the aspects where you find outsourcing would be the forensic investigations and digital forensics. In IDEC, they sign a Section 41.6 non-disclosure, which is Section 41.6 of the NPA Act, Chair. In fact, every single project and or teams meeting or meeting of the teams, when it takes place, the attendance register has on the right-hand side a reminder of the non-disclosure, and that details of that meeting and every meeting to follow do not get discussed or disclosed. I am aware that the supply chain management process of the NPA, they do run a risk profile. They do give us a heads up if there might be something we have missed, and we are asked to go back and relook at a different service provider. Perhaps in addition to indicate that in the IDEC space, we do have matters relating to state security, and the entity that actually looks at those matters were top secret cleared by state security themselves, just for purposes of finalizing that gap. And then the last thing, Honorable Ndate Khubeka, was on the Neotel liquid telecoms. Just to be clear that the corruption we are looking at relates to Neotel. Liquid telecoms, unfortunately, inherited Neotel. So they not only inherited the liability, they have to come and talk to us about the criminality that would have been done by Neotel. But if there were any allegations of criminality in any of the matters we are currently dealing with, which in this instance is Neotel/Liquid Telecoms in the Transnet sphere, Chair, we would most certainly look at those. No one is an exception to the rule, even if you are talking to a party. I hope, Honorable Khubeka, that would have dealt with some of the aspects that were raised. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll perhaps just deal with one or two issues that were not dealt with, or just for emphasis. So, Honorable Khubeka, the issue of I think you put it really nicely when you said we must really understand where is the problem coming from. And I think that is critical, because if we don't properly understand the information and the facts, we just, base our opinions on things that are out in the media space. It's very difficult then to properly identify the problem. And so understanding the problem of complex corruption, as you put it, is so critical. And the role of law enforcement in this is hugely important. And I'll deal I'll just emphasize what Advocate Johnson just said about the potential for political interference. Through you, Chair, just to really emphasize that it's not only that our Constitution requires us to do our jobs without fear, favor, or prejudice. As individuals, each one of us here, We took these jobs because we believe in the rule of law. We believe in accountability. We believe in justice. And it doesn't matter who it is. The rule of law means it doesn't matter who it is. If the evidence points to and establishes that someone, on the evidence that we have, is guilty of corruption, of course, or that the probabilities of a successful prosecution are there, we will prosecute. And it is our individual integrity that is so important. But that doesn't mean that all prosecutors in the NPA, in fact, work this way. We certainly, and I will advise you of some of the steps we put in place to try to ensure that, because it's hugely important that we have prosecutors that don't only just mouth without fear for favor or prejudice, that they actually behave and do their jobs in accordance with the oath that we take. So the understanding complex corruption, I just want to make this one point. As law enforcement and prosecuting authorities, we have a huge role in the country being confident that we are addressing corruption. And we've dealt with a number of challenges, and I will come to that in a second as well. But unless we understand what is the real cause of corruption in this country, that the lack of systems, processes, ethical leadership and good governance across government entities, whether it's on all the levels of government, that is what causes corruption. And unless we address that, I'm glad that with the OPI, potentially the NACAC has actually, the setting up of this new entity that's going to look at systemic corruption and how to deal with that. I think that will really have, because unless you prevent corruption up front, we in law enforcement can be blamed for it. And I know I do not want to minimize how important it is that we do hold people accountable, that the people see that those responsible for corruption are being held accountable. But unless we see it as law enforcement is part of a much bigger strategy in terms of our national anti-corruption strategy to deal with corruption, we will never be able to prosecute ourselves out of the problem of corruption unless we have preventative measures up front. So, and to give the assurance that, I think Andrea's dealt with that political interference. I have not had the executive in any way attempting to influence the prosecuting authority to deal with cases or not to deal with cases. With regard to cases against the poor, I want to say to Honorable Khubeka, there's one thing that I take from Vusi Pikoli, the previous national director, and he always said, always have a bias for the poor. And that is what we want to, as prosecutors, we want to make sure that we are there to help the poor, the vulnerable, the marginalized in communities more than the rich and the powerful who can influence. So that is what we really want to do, is to serve the victims across society, no matter where they come from. You're right, Honorable Khubeka, that the NPA has taken a knock in terms of confidence of people in its ability to do its work. And I'm hoping that I'll just hold with that. But the reasons for this, and you mentioned a number of the cases, Phalaphala, Koko, Omotoso, Bushiri, Estina, Asbestos, Gupta, Choloto, and the Sendiso Makaka cases. And I'll leave the last one for our colleagues in the NPS to deal with. But I want to implore, and the reason why I say this, I want to implore the committee and the people of the country not to judge the success or failure of the NPA on these very important cases. And I'll go through each one of them and I can explain where they are in a legal process so that we can understand what happens. And the danger of coming to conclusions before legal processes was so clearly demonstrated in the New Lane matter, which was the first case, that state capture case, that the NPA, in inverted commas, lost. And we were absolutely, from the national director to the prosecutor, we were denigrated, I think is the word, in that matter. Many of you would have seen the Amabungane documentary, where the national director and many prosecutors, that is the best word to use. New Lane was the linchpin that were used to lynch us. And it caused huge damage to the NPA. And what's happened now is Supreme Court of Appeal has completely overturned that decision. We believed in the case, we believed in the prosecutors, we appealed that case. And the Supreme Court has seriously criticized the judge in that matter in terms of how the matter was approached. And now what do we have to do is retrial before a new judge. And that disadvantages witnesses who have testified, who have to testify again, and there's a whole lot of challenges with the retrial. But we have to deal with that and go through that process. The point I make is that let's allow legal processes before we decide on success or failure of the NPA without allowing these processes to unfold. Advocate Johnson's dealt with the Coco matter, the Omotoso matter. The NPA is doing such incredible work on sexual and gender-based violence cases. This one case, a hugely important case, has really set us back. And I dealt with that, and I don't want to go into any details because when I answered, I think it was Honorable Trollope earlier on, I dealt with that. But this is a matter that is on appeal. The Estina matter, Advocate Johnson is...
Sorry, may I interrupt you? So, when you explained what's going on with the case, I then also thought, well, we hurriedly deported the guy. So now I'm thinking, okay, so we're not going to get him back now?
Chair, this was...
So, and I'm not blaming you, I'm just now wanting to understand how that... I mean, the speed with which he was ejected made a lot of people happy, but now it's clear that he's gone.
Chair, let me say, it's a no-win situation. And I want to just emphasize that, yes, he's no longer in the country. We are appealing that matter, right? So an appeal process can take years. And so, it's as I said, it's a no-win situation because he could have still been in South Africa, enjoying his life in South Africa, while the victims feel that they've been denied justice and the person they feel is responsible for their pain is still here, enjoying life in South Africa, doing things that he wants to in South Africa. The fact that he's had to flee from South Africa means he's not been able to live his life the way he would like to. In the meantime, the appeal process could take years. Nigeria is a country that we do have an extradition treaty with, and there are also other multilateral treaties that we can draw on to hopefully bring him back when we do. We have been successful with many, many extradition applications across the world. The UAE is the one that sticks out, and we've had challenges with that. But generally, we are reasonably successful with extraditing people from other parts of the world. So hopefully the Nigerian government will be amenable and we'll be able to bring him back to face trial once if we are successful in the appeal process, because that is also, we've got to wait to see what the outcome of that will be.